This Week in Startups is brought to you by Walker Corporate Law, a boutique law firm specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit them at walkercorporatelaw.com. And Squarespace. Start building your website today at squarespace.com. Enter offer code TWIST at checkout to get 10% off.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis, and we host this program twice a week, and we bring investors and founders on to talk about what they're working on and where the world's going. We are very lucky today to have a legend on the program, somebody who's been building technology startups, well, since technology startups started in the 70s and 80s. Jim Clark is with us. Obviously, he's the founder of Silicon Graphics and the co-founder of Netscape with our friend Mark Andreessen, Shutterfly, myCFO, investor in Apple, Facebook, Twitter, Palantir, and a bunch of other companies, and yachtsman, philanthropist, a ton of different titles and hats you've worn. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
You started Silicon Graphics in 1982,
Right.
Which was a company that went public, same time frame as Microsoft. But before that, you were working on your PhD and part of the graphics revolution in the 70s. I think actually, you know Ed Catmull, who's been on the program, the co-founder of Pixar.
Right. Ed was, and I graduated PhDs same year.
Same year.
Yeah.
From?
University of Utah.
Now, in Utah, they had this graphics program
Right.
where they brought together yourself, Ed Catmull. Who else was in that cohort? It was a pretty famous group of people, if I remember.
It was Alan Kay.
Alan Kay, yep.
John Warnock.
Wow.
Gary Watkins. You may not know who he is, but he was a famous guy of the Watkins algorithm. There were, let's see, who else was around? A whole cluster of people. Ivan Sutherland was there, who was kind of the ringleader of the whole thing. Faculty people who were there were people like Tom Stockham, who created the Redbook format, which is our digital recording format that's been so popular for so many years.
Yeah.
Pre-compression days.
Right.
One great guy was a guy named Chuck Seitz, who many of these guys, and David Evans, who was the chairman of the department, but Chuck Seitz and Ivan both left for Caltech and became faculty there about the year that Ed and I graduated. So it was a pretty famous people, a lot of famous concentration of people there.
When you were there what was this, in the 70s or?
It was in 74, let's see, I was there 71 to 74.
Do you remember what it was like to go to school every day, to go to work there? Can you remember back that far of like, did you realize when you were there that this was going to change the world?
You know, maybe there was an inkling of it. You know, they had one of the nodes on the ARPANET. And in those days, there were 5.
There were 5 nodes on ARPANET, the military version of the internet.
That's right.
The precursor.
And we had one. We had a big, the interface was this big refrigerator-sized thing. And I didn't know the significance of it then, but as you know, that evolved and became what we know today as the internet.
And that ARPANET, what could you do with it at that point? Could you just send a message from one computer to another or send a file?
Yeah, it was pretty much just messaging. It was connecting people who were under a common contract, and they developed it. That was when it was first developed. Bo Beranek and Newman was the hardware vendor. The big refrigerator I was talking about was BB&N router. And so basically there were four nodes, and it was all about developing the protocols. Vince Cerf, all of those guys were down in Southern California developing the protocols for it, but we were one of the nodes.
And at that point, nobody could ever envision what we saw in the 90s and how big it got. Did anybody have any inkling that this was going to become a huge commercial success?
I think if anyone claimed they did, they'd be being dishonest, because I don't think anyone knew where it was going to go.
When's the first time you saw a computer and actually touched it? Like, when did you remember
first
that
time
moment?
I saw a computer and touched it was in 1964.
64?
Yeah.
Under what circumstance? Where were you?
Sorry, I take it back. It was in 66, because I had gotten out of the Navy. I was a young guy who quit school and joined the Navy and never finished high school. So by the time I started college, I was already 21. But the place that I worked was at Boeing at the Saturn V facility in New Orleans. So I was part of that whole Saturn V development.
What was the Saturn V?
It was the moon rocket.
The moon rocket?
Yeah, the moon rocket.
Wow.
Yeah. So I worked on programs that did the analog testing of all the valves and so forth in the first stage, the big main first stage, the huge one.
That's incredible. Yeah. So you witnessed it? Were you there when
I witnessed the testing of some of them,
right.
the firing of some of them, where they're stationary and held in place.
Right.
Test firing that happened over in I think it was in Alabama or Mississippi nearby. But I was a young guy, and I sort of happened into that, and I learned to program, and I was programming GE 235s and UNIRAC 1108s and
incredible
punch card systems and that whole thing.
When you see Elon and SpaceX land that booster rocket, when you first saw that, when they stuck the landing, what did that feel like to you? Did you have any...
That's quite an accomplishment. Great idea, actually.
Yeah, I mean, could you ever fathom that somebody could actually do that? It seems like it's a CGI. When you're watching it, it looks like it's a computer-generated image, doesn't it?
From a control system standpoint, I can see it.
Right.
Right? Real-time control systems can be made to exist to do all manner of things like that, including drive cars. But I think it's visionary of Elon to attempt that.
Yeah, and that's going to sort of change the economics of the whole thing.
Change it quite.
Hey, so how did Silicon Graphics start? When did you get the idea for that? I know you guys were at Stanford, a couple of you, and it spun out of Stanford somehow, yeah?
Yeah. Initially, when I first got to Stanford, prior to that, I had been with Ed Catmull out at New York Institute of Technology.
Out in Long Island.
On Long Island.
So Ed Catmull's there, holding court in Long Island.
And so I had been frustrated being an academic at the University of California at Santa Cruz. I quit and got in touch with Ed and said, I'd like to come out and work on capture system, motion capture system. So I was out there building a scanning LED-based motion capture system so they could, as eventually developed, so they could do animation.
Right.
Recording human body movements and having those mapped on animated characters. So I was working on that, and then I got fired by the head of New York Institute of Technology, and almost simultaneously with that, Ed and Albie Ray Smith took a job at Pixar.
What did you get fired for? I wonder. Did you show up on time? Were you
No. It's a long story. It was basically the guy was a bit nuts.
Well, it had to be
No, he was
certifiable.
I believe certifiably nuts.
Okay.
I mean, he was kind of like Khrushchev. He'd come in and beat his shoe on the wall and yell at people. And
so he was out of control. Yeah.
Huh? Yeah, he was a little bit out of control. So I ended up writing a letter to look for a job with someplace else.
Right.
But I used the local a PDP-10 to do it, the word processing system to do it, printed it on the local printer, deleted the file. He had a guy snooping on everyone, and he saw my letter. He came in, presented it on my desk, and said, and he demanded my resignation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Because I had looking for another job, and in it I said, this guy is too irrational for me to remain here.
Oh, yeah.
And so he was very upset.
Like, hey, I'm
so he fired me. And I came out to California, and that's when I got a job at Stanford. It's kind of like throwing it in the briar patch.
Right. What was Stanford like in the early 80s then?
The first summer I was here at Stanford, I went up to Xerox PARC, and Lynn Conway and Carver Mead were running a class on how to design integrated circuits. And I was a hardware designer and a software person, so I learned in that summer how to design integrated circuits, and then I decided I was going to build this thing called a geometry engine. I devised an architecture that would allow highly parallel computation, kind of the earliest forms of GPUs.
Right.
And I designed that, and eventually a few students, 7 students, and I decided to leave Stanford, and I had the idea I wanted to bring 3D graphics to the masses. So, and by the way, most of NVIDIA people who have truly managed to achieve that are ex-Silicon Graphics people.
Yeah, I was about to make that arc of history, which is the GPU is the driving force right now in Silicon Valley for self-driving cars, mining of cryptocurrency. And
well, it's a highly parallel system, very inexpensive, lots of concentrated GPUs, graphics programming units, but they're all really just arithmetic units able to do floating point arithmetic
Right.
and be programmed. And NVIDIA has been insightful enough to create a programming system that makes it easier to do, and they become essential to neural networks and all of these, modern AI is based on programming GPUs in parallel and doing neural networks.
So AI, computer vision, all of this stuff wouldn't exist without the GPU and the work that started back in the SGI days.
Yeah, the way it's constituted today, that's true.
And when did you guys decide to start the company, and how did you go about that? Did you try to raise venture capital? Did you use your own money? What's it like to start a company? Because we have entrepreneurs watching this, and some of the entrepreneurs watching this program literally were born in 1995.
Yeah.
So they're 20 years old right now.
I was about let's see. It doesn't matter how old I was, but basically,
You were 35 or something, 30?
Yeah, about 35.
35, right. So you weren't the youngest kid in the class.
No, I wasn't.
You had some experience under your belt.
And I had a bunch of students, some brightest guys I've ever been around, who were interested in joining me and starting this company. This was the same time that Sun Microsystems was formed. It's the same time Microsoft was forming. So it was an era. We decided we wanted to build workstations. Sun was building a bitmap graphics workstation, very inexpensive one, and they had taken Berkeley Unix because Bill Joy was involved. We didn't have that same knowledge base. So we went out and hired a bunch of guys from Bell Labs, which at that point was, Steve Bourne, Shell Bourne, numerous people who had been working on System 5 Unix. And eventually we hired a guy named Kip Hickman, who came in and programmed Unix, single-handedly brought the Unix operating system up so that we would have a workstation based on Unix. Then simultaneously we had a graphics team building hardware, GPUs, all of that, so that we could have the graphics system.
Because at the time there weren't single-use workstations. Everything was a mini computer or a mainframe. The PC era had just started.
PC era had barely started. There was usually used terminals, simple
dumb terminal, keyboard, monitor.
Talking, in fact, over the network.
Yeah.
Had a 3 megabit Ethernet on campus at Stanford, and you would use those dumb terminals talking to some PDP-10 or other time-shared computer. And so our objective was to make them a standalone workstation that didn't have to be remote.
What were those first workstations? What did they cost? I'm curious.
Different categories. Sun Microsystems, they were like $20,000, $15,000.
Which in $1980 would be the equivalent of $100,000 today.
Yeah, it wasn't super cheap, but it was as cheap as you could make them and make money making them.
Right.
Whereas Microsoft, of course, used the PC.
Had $3,000 or $4,000 computers at the time.
So they were substantially cheaper. And then Silicon Graphics made $50,000 workstations. So we were up a different level.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you raise money for a company in 1982?
It was pretty tough. I didn't know enough about business, although I pulled together a team, including a CFO, a manufacturing guy. I was the engineering leader.
Yeah.
And I wrote a business plan and I shopped it around. I wrote
a business plan.
I wrote a business plan.
Before Microsoft Word, it's a doc.
Yep.
You wrote a document.
Yep.
And people read it like a paper, or was it before PowerPoint?
That's how companies were started. And in fact, it's still a pretty viable way of starting a company. You need to articulate your idea, what you want to do.
Right.
You need to be able to get it all down. You need to work up a financial plan, at least an expense plan. And all of those things need to come together in something that someone can read and try to figure out what you're going to do and how much money you need.
Right. Except today, some people make their app and then they bring it to the VCs and say, "Here's my app."
I'm not
it's already
saying
built.
It's certainly not the only way everything has been done.
Yeah, but it's incredible when you think about it. You would literally write a business plan, and then you show up at Sand Hill Road, and they read the plan the day before, and you sit and you take questions like it's a dissertation.
That's right. You go in. I visited Mayfield Fund. I visited Sequoia in those days.
Sequoia backed it, right? Were
Sequoia did not. They backed out.
They backed out.
Yeah.
Tell the story.
Well, I've just told it, really. Yeah. They basically said, they kind of made fun of my lack of knowledge about the financial part of it, and said they just decided not to participate. Glenn Mueller, who was one of the major partners at Mayfield Fund, decided that he thought I was sincere and really going to try to, it wasn't full of ego, and I was going to try to make this thing work.
It's incredible. They give you what, $1 million or something, or $500,000?
I got $800,000 for 40% of the company. That was the economics then.
Wow.
Worst thing I ever did. Worst deal I ever did.
So it's a $2 million valuation, essentially. Yeah. Incredible. So they get 40% of the company, and when you go public, that 40% is worth.
Well, all that got diluted over many years. As a manufacturing company, we ended up we built iron, and we put the operating system and the graphics system in it. By the time we did all that, it was a big, expensive piece of hardware, required a sales force. So it was a huge company builder.
Yeah. All right, when we get back from this quick break, I want to talk about your time at Netscape. And of course, you've got CommandScape, your new company. And we'll talk a little bit about your investments as well when we get back on This Week in Startups. I want to first thank my friend Scott Walker for supporting startups, not just supporting This Week in Startups, but startups themselves. Walker Corporate Law, as you know, is a boutique law firm that specializes in the representation of entrepreneurs and startups. That's what they do. And they encourage fixed fees. What's that? They give you a fixed price. You know what you're going to pay to do your startup financing, to do your corporate formation, to do your trademarks, to do whatever you need to do, employee stock option plan, licensing, mergers, acquisitions, terms of service, privacy policy, all those things that are check boxes for your startup. They do with lawyers that have decades of experience, 10, 20 years. No junior associates getting on the job training, and they specialize in startups. That's why they're so good at it. That's why they can give you fixed fees, and they're really in it for the right reason. Scott Walker comes to all of our events. He's a real true mensch. He spends a lot of time talking to founders, and you can call him directly right now, 415-979-9998. 415, that's San Francisco, 979-9998. Or you can email him, scott@walkercorporatelaw.com, scott@walkercorporatelaw.com, or visit walkercorporatelaw.com. Scott's a great guy. Tell him your Uncle Jason sent you, and he'll take care of you. Okay. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest today, Jim Clark, the legendary founder of Silicon Graphics, Netscape, Healtheon, Shutterfly, myCFO, investor in Apple, Facebook. Also into the Burgundies a bit. You got a little bit of a collection of wine over there.
Yeah, well, we all have our weaknesses.
You can't possibly drink it all. So what we had 30,000 bottles now you're up to? What do you do with all these bottles?
I've got a few less than that now.
A few less than that? You've been tapping?
I've sold some.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And a little bit of art. You like the Monet? You like the Matisse?
Well,
you got a couple pieces?
Yeah, a variety of things,
You have a favorite? Favorite piece that if you had to give them all away but one? If you had to give them all away but one, what do you keep?
I've got a collection that I really like. Toulouse-Lautrec, there's a few pictures like that I have. Van Dongen, who's a really interesting character, and painted some interesting nudes.
Wow. Do you worry, because these things are worth tens of millions at this point, I'm taking it, right?
A couple $100 million, maybe.
A couple $100 million.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How do you not worry about them? Because they're irreplaceable by definition.
Well, at one point I had 400 million worth, and it was worth 600 million. So,
right.
they go, art market goes up and down. I've sold some.
Yeah.
And
do you worry about them? Like, I would worry about having possession of something that is that timeless and irreplaceable.
Yeah, you're kind of leading into the current company.
Yeah.
I have an alarm system, obviously. I have a monitoring system, humidity control system for the house. The house is basically a fortress.
Love it.
And then the whole thing is surrounded by land and protected by dogs.
All right, we'll get to CommandScape in a second. I want to ask you one or two questions, if we can, because we'll bring us right up to where we are. You met a kid named Mark Andreessen, I think in 93 or so, 92, 93?
I met him in 94.
94.
Mm.
You meet Mark Andreessen, he's got hair, he's a young kid, and he shows you what?
Well, when I was leaving Silicon Graphics, after 12 years, I was frustrated. The company, I could not get the company to move down. Even the name of the company implies getting down.
Right.
NVIDIA did what we should have done.
Right.
But in the end, we were a workstation company, and
Right.
the company was very high-end oriented. So I wanted it to move down. They wouldn't do it. 12 years later, I just said, I'm out, and I quit.
And you didn't have the founder power to just say, we're doing this.
Big companies are hard to change. I didn't have the personality to get it done. So what I did, I said, I'm out. And I ran into Mark Andreessen via sending him an email. I said, I understand you've just moved out here. A guy introduced me or told me who he was. I just sent him an email out of the blue. He met with me the next morning, and we got together, and I told him, look, I want to start a company. I'm not going to recruit from my current company. We searched for something to do for about 3 months. And then one day he said, why don't we just hire the guys from University of Illinois? They're all leaving because they're graduating. Yeah. Let's hire them and redo this thing and make it a commercial
Make
thing.
Mosaic browser into the Netscape browser.
Redo it. And we did. So we flew out there. I gave them offer letters, funded it.
Amazing.
Brought them out here, and the world just went crazy that I was leaving a big company like SGI, and I was hiring a team of nobodies out of university, but it happened that they were also very interested in the fact that we were taking Mosaic into a commercial space.
And for people who don't know, at the time, Mosaic didn't even support images. The Mosaic browser, I don't even think
it did
support images.
Yeah, it did support images.
Not backgrounds, probably not even text.
It was, basically what it added was images to text.
So that was the first piece.
Yeah. Images, audio files, and things like that were all possible. I mean, it's just HTML. It's just a format, just a formatting language. But so we came out here, and I had a couple of guys who called me from Silicon Graphics, one of whom was Kip Hickman, the same guy who had gotten us into the operating system business. And Kip is the one who, I said, look, we will not be successful if we don't make this system secure. We've got to devise something that makes us secure. Kip wrote the first version of that called Secure Sockets Layer, SSL. Yeah. And then later we hired Tahir Al-Gamal and Paul Coker, and they re-implemented it and made it bulletproof. And so bulletproof that it's been being used now for 20 years with 2 minor modifications with no problems.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And Netscape wound up getting sold to AOL eventually, I remember.
Eventually got sold to AOL.
Why did it become a standalone great company forever? Was it just Microsoft's onslaught?
I think it's really hard to put your finger on it. Essentially, we made software for servers, we made software, but we didn't get into any of the end user things. Right. We could have acquired the guys doing Yahoo. We could have.
You hosted Yahoo, I think. Is that correct?
I don't recall if we hosted them, but in any event, we certainly talked to them quite a bit, and we chose to try to be the supplier of let's say the guts of the internet, and it was a hard thing to do when there was a Microsoft trying to kill you. Right. Microsoft was trying to kill us, and they effectively did because they disabled us so much that we had to take this offer from AOL.
Right. And that was the one thing that was the antitrust thing that stuck, was that Microsoft bundled the browser. That was one of the big complaints.
Thing that Microsoft did that was precipitated the antitrust stuff was they went to their current partners, the PC vendors, and said, if you bundled the the Netscape browser, we will cut off your Windows license. Right. So that's the antitrust part.
That is so cutthroat when you think about it.
It's pretty cutthroat. I mean, business is kind of a civilized form of warfare.
Civilized form, I like that. Well, I mean, we see it today with Facebook copying everything that Snapchat does.
It's better than having, a battle where you shoot each other, but, the idea is to kill the other company. Right. And, economically.
You were early Apple, Facebook, Twitter, Palantir. Do you like investing in companies? Is that fun for you?
Part of it. Most of the time since I left and moved to the East Coast, I have been just an investor. Right. So I haven't had any startups. I have gone to and found and invested in startups, but in general, I haven't started a company for 12 years, 15 years.
But that leads us to CommandScape. Right. This is a new company that you're co-founding. Yeah. You have a co-founder. What is it, and what's your vision?
CommandScape is kind of a blend of a bunch of things. Kind of, it's what I refer to it as a building management system. So, BMS. BMS is an existing market, and it actually is huge. It's HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems in big buildings, skyscrapers down to small buildings. And it's a $100 billion plus market, Honeywell, companies like Johnson Controls. And I've had a lot of interest in a lot of different aspects of managing buildings, their security, their lighting, their video surveillance systems, and things of this nature. But I never quite understood how big an opportunity building management was. So what we're essentially doing is redefining building management to include not just HVAC, but also lighting, video surveillance, security system, life safety, fire alarms, all of that, and access control. And we're bundling that in one application and wrapping a cyber envelope around it that uses SSL, an unused part of it, which I can go into, to ensure that the only way into this system is through a public key certificate.
Got it. And so does this come from owning homes and tinkering a bit for yourself?
Yeah. Obviously, it does. The initial parts did.
Yeah.
But the building management came from, honestly, I'm building a house in New York City. It's a townhouse, 7 floors. It's, it has they proposed putting a building management system in there, and it was going to be a $300,000 system.
What, like the Crestron or this kind of nonsense?
No. Those guys are not even close to being in that kind of system, that kind of market.
They're more entertainment side.
Yeah, it's the entertainment stuff. But this, I'm talking about
the Honeywell stuff.
Three hot water loops, 2 chilled water loops, makeup air, supply air, valves, baffles, 28 zones or whatever, 30, 50
people
zones.
Make a little bit of money. They get into this and they start doing like the Crestron system. I have a joke with my friends. The more they spend on their home automation system, the less likely it is to work.
Yeah.
It's literally inversely correlated. And they literally have to call the Crestron person on the phone because they cannot put a movie on.
Well, that's famous. Crestron
so
programmers
horrible.
maintain the passwords, and when they move and leave that company, they take the passwords with them.
It's
and
incredible.
you're at their mercy to be able to reprogram
I've literally
the Crestron
because
system.
listen, I've done okay. I'm not like Jim Clark, obviously, but I've done okay. And I got pitched on doing this in my house.
Yeah.
I was like, well, I have Apple TV and Sonos and Nest cams and Butterfly cams. I think I'm good. Why would I create the central system that nobody can understand? The interface of each of those individual components seems pretty good. But it's not 7 stories. It's only 2 stories.
Well, I mean, okay.
But it doesn't include the other stuff you're talking about.
You're talking about, can you, in a 2,000, 3,000 square foot home or apartment, put together your own stuff?
Yeah.
Yes, you can. Is it secure? No. It isn't secure. I guarantee you. Do you have wireless things for your security system? It's not secure. I can break in. I can prove it.
Right.
So, but that might work. It might give you, I call it pseudo-secure. You got a pseudo-security system, but I'm not satisfied with that when I've got $400 million worth of art in my house.
Right.
And likewise, a building, a commercial building, they're not going to be satisfied with some, little bubblegum type system.
So can we see it? Let's take a look.
Sure.
Yeah, maybe you could pull it up here for a second. Actually, let's go to commercial break and we'll pull it up right after the break on This Week in Startups. Hey, everybody, let me take a moment to tell you about the awesome Squarespace. I use Squarespace all the time. I think I've created a half dozen websites this year alone. Launch Angel Summit, Founder.University, Angel.University. Every one of our websites we put onto Squarespace here at launch, and we love it. It costs us $10, $20 a month to have an amazing, gorgeous website, and they will even give you a free domain name if you start up for a year. So start your free trial today. No credit card is required. You get a free domain name if you sign up for a year. And if you decide to sign up for Squarespace after the trial, use the promo code TWIST and you will get 10% off your first purchase. You will have a professionally designed website. You can pick from all these amazing, beautiful templates, and it works everywhere, on mobile, on your desktop, on a wide monitor, on a small monitor, on an iPad, on an iPhone, Android. It doesn't matter what you're using. It will look beautiful. State-of-the-art tech, secure and stable. It can withstand massive amounts of traffic when you go viral, and it's trusted by millions, including some of the most respected brands in the world. I am a huge fan of Squarespace. Thank you to Squarespace, and make sure you use that promo code TWIST. So we do it with our in-house creative and our content staff, not by hiring expensive developers. Thanks to my friends at Squarespace. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to This Week in Startups. Jim Clark is here talking about his new company, CommandScape. CommandScape.com. Go ahead and check it out right now. Building Management Systems, BMS.
BMS, Building Management Systems, kind of redefining that market to be more than HVAC.
Great, let's see.
So
let's take a look
essentially,
here, pop up the app.
You've
done a couple of product demos in your day.
Let me preface something here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna exit this. This system uses Secure Sockets Layer, or TLS in its modern incarnation, but it uses a part of it that's never been used before.
Oh, okay.
Largely hasn't been used in a commercial market like this. And that's where you have a certificate, public key certificate, and that is installed in the keychain on here. You cannot export it because Apple prevents that. That's why I like the Apple platform.
Right.
But this certificate sets up a handshake with our cloud service. The cloud and the home, multiple homes, in fact, are connected to, or businesses, any kind of building, are connected to our cloud through Amazon, the Amazon cloud, and we have a hardware security module at Amazon where we have our certificates that it's public key cryptography requires a chain of trust amongst a number of different certificates, basically. And we are a certification authority for our customers. So we issue certificates. We've devised all of the systems to issue those certificates in a very simple, easy way using a little early setup. And then you can download the app on the App Store, and you run the app, enter this 9-digit code that you get sent, and an installer is usually present and gives you that code. And by telling you it verbally or via text message, you enter it, and then the app is enabled, and you have essentially a key to that building.
Right.
And from that point on, you can do whatever you're allowed to do in that building.
Becomes your
kind of your role.
Yeah, what roles you have permission for.
Right.
Some people may not have roles to open up the garage.
Yeah, exactly. Or a child might not have the keys to the wine cellar.
Right.
And that's all. Or the gun room.
That's going to be the test, is if the kids can get into the wine cellar, we'll find out exactly how secure this is, Mr. Clark. All
right, Mr. Clark. Out of the way if there is a way.
Trust me, they'll figure it out. I was explaining to somebody the other day, I was like, I realized we were really bad kids in Brooklyn the day. We took the vodka out of the bottle and we replaced half of it with water.
Well, I did that with bourbon one time and replaced it with something else.
Iced tea? Well, we took it, and then I remember we went to school. We had no idea we had never tried vodka in our lives. We bring vodka to school. Yeah. We get the Tropicana 12-ounce things. We drink half of it. We pour the other half vodka. We're in Boyce High School. This is sophomore year. So they let us drink the orange juice in class. We're sitting there. The three of us drink what's the equivalent of probably 3 screwdrivers. We've never had vodka in our lives.
Let me give you an idea.
It was crazy.
So I'm going to start this app, and there's a little bar up at the top, and that's the handshake that's going on through the cloud, eventually connected to my home. There happens to be an alarm set throughout the house right now. There's a live-in staff member, a guy and his wife, live over in this apartment way down here, and their apartment is right here. The staff home that you see at the top is indicates that it's a custom setting where all of the motion sensors and sensors in their part of the house are not enabled right now, but throughout the rest of the house, which is a big house, you've got everything is enabled. And if anyone walked around anywhere in that house and did something, now at the moment it is pretty late out there, and I don't think, even if with this alarm set, there's no one moving around in the main house.
Right.
But let's see, how could I get this? I could send a text message and ask the manager, this guy to
take a walk around,
set off an alarm. But suffice to say that you see these little tiny red blocks; those indicate sensors that are not enabled right now. But if I were to open, let's do this. He's going to get upset, but I'm going to open the front doors. Open the garage door. So I picked this symbol, which is up-down garage door opener, and I'm going to open it. Right. And you will see it triggered the alarm. So he's going to be dealing with that, and the car door's open. So let's clear that. All right. And now I'm going to show you a picture of,
There it is.
okay, that's the car. Now you can kind of see the car door, the
Open,
garage
you can see it,
door.
yeah. You can tell.
And let me take that part of it, and I'm going to click it again. In any event, this control, I got it to open, but
Yeah.
I've got it. I'm not sure what's going on right at the moment, but
Yeah.
I have to.
But the idea is you could close it.
Yeah, I can close it.
Yeah.
In fact, I should because
Now, what kind of
it's closing. Now you
it's
can see
closing.
it.
What kind of sensors are you using around the house for movement? You made all your own sensors?
We made our
Or
own
are you
motion
using
sensors.
commodity
We bought some Panasonic little devices, and we created a RS-485 interface to them so that they can talk on this little bus.
Yeah.
And all of this is real time, and we can monitor all these sensors. You notice now the garage door is closed.
Yeah,
'cause
for sure.
Light isn't coming in. And if I now select the room and turn the lights out,
Yeah.
you'll see the lights went out. So that's sort of a basic use of the system. But I am now going to reset the alarms, enable. I'm going to enable what he had, staff home.
Right. Different scenarios.
This is what he had enabled
Yep.
earlier.
Boom.
So now we have the alarm set again. You can see the whole thing is
Yep.
now enabled. But if I wanted to open a door,
Yep.
I'll show you there's a front door here.
Right.
Go down a level, and it's hard
there's
to
the
see.
cameras,
It's
too. I
hard to
can see
see.
the
I don't know
cameras.
if it's visible on
Oh,
the
yeah, it's totally visible.
display. But if I hit this, you notice how the latch looked
Yep.
like it, the lock looked like it opened.
Yep.
And it closed. So that basically pulsed the electronic lock open for 3 seconds.
Yep.
And I did that from here.
Yep.
If I had someone at the front door, I
Let 'em
can
in.
look at the front door camera.
Yep.
Right? And I can say, okay, that's someone I'm going to let in.
Right.
And so you pulse the front door, maybe it's a FedEx delivery guy. This is a home use, but
Yeah.
you can imagine this being used in a commercial setting where a building manager might be sitting there monitoring all of this, and he gets a notice on his computer, iPad, he gets email, push notification, any of a number of different kinds of notices, all configurable. So the system is intended to be, like I said, all of those security functions, building intrusion security. Anyone moving around, you can use the motion sensors to turn lights on. So it's more integrated than you'll find in independent silo kind of systems. And then it's got this wrapper around it. Now, I don't know if you're familiar or know this, but the Target theft that occurred at Target stores,
Yeah.
you know how they got in?
No.
Through the air conditioning system, through the
Makes
HVAC
total
system.
sense.
They came in through a modem that had a poor password and got in and sucked down 30 million credit card IDs.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's important that you be able to secure your HVAC system, every aspect. So we've taken all of that and wrapped it in one cybersecurity envelope, all controlled with a certificate, and it's open technology. I mean, anyone can go out, take SSL, which is publicly available on the internet. You can download the software. And we built an infrastructure around that to issue keys, maintain them, the whole management stuff, in order to enable us to issue certificates to our users. And it takes about, if I wanted to give you the ability to get into my house right now,
Yeah.
it would take us about 1
Well,
minute.
you're not going to be there, and I got nothing to do during the holiday, so I'll go to West Palm Beach. I'm assuming that's what
You don't want to be there right now. It's
Oh,
summertime.
because Trump's there? I mean,
No, it's summertime.
it's too hot
I live about a mile from Trump.
for Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, Mar-a-Lago.
It's a disaster down there, having him down there.
When he's
isn't it?
there, yeah.
When he's there, it's a complete and utter disaster.
Right.
Everybody has to route around him.
Yeah, you're protecting the president.
Hey, what did your parents do? I'm curious.
What did I do?
What your parents do? What did your parents do?
My father was a farmer.
Oh, really?
My mother was a nurse.
My mom's a
and,
nurse, too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Farmer. My dad's a bartender. It's related to a farmer.
But I was a
He's
farmer. I
literally
used to drive down the road with my
What did he
stepfather
farm?
and chewing tobacco. He'd spitting
Wow.
out one side and I was spitting out the other side. Right?
They let you chew tobacco at what age?
I was chewing tobacco when I was 15 years old.
15 years old. Nothing can go wrong with that.
I'm a real country hick,
Yeah.
basically.
The reason I asked that is I wonder what it was like for your parents when you tell them you're going to get a PhD and start building computers. Did they have any idea or conception of what you were doing?
My mom she did.
Yeah.
I mean, she knew how important education was. She always emphasized that. It wasn't very effective because I quit school and joined the Navy, but eventually I got the message.
Right.
And she was quite happy and, proud, to use a word.
Yeah. Did she live to see SGI go public? And
Oh, sure. She's still alive.
She's still alive now?
93, yeah.
Wow. She
90
must have been
94,
blown
95.
away
She's
by
95.
your repeated and continued success. It must have blown her away.
It's made her life better, too.
Yeah, I would think so. She got to retire at a decent age. I hope.
She's got it. I help her out plenty.
Yeah. So what's next for CommandScape? You could fund this yourself, obviously, to get it up and running.
Right.
But what's the next phase? Do you have to build a huge sales team to then go out and sell it into these buildings, or is it?
Look, companies are hard, because the technology is just a small part of it.
Right.
In fact, it's important, very important part.
Right.
And I first hired the technical team, and then more recently, about 9 months ago, I hired Don Barima, who was a guy who had worked for many years at ADT, Pepsi, AT&T, but ADT Security was his last thing, and he implemented their home automation system. He managed that whole thing, and created that. And,
which was a money printing machine. I mean,
it is now.
People have a lot of people have a split difference of how they feel about ADT. Some people feel it's a little bit too expensive, but it did become a money printing
Whatever
machine.
the case, business is business. He created that, and they have been very successful.
Yeah.
But they got bought by Apollo, merged in with Protection One. There's all a turmoil in the industry, and Johnson Controls, by the way, bought Tyco, which is the other security part of ADT.
Yeah.
And that's the market we're going at.
Yeah. And so are you going to be, do you consider it a hardware company as well as an operating system sort of platform company, or are you going to just integrate every piece of hardware you can find?
Look, in the end, in order to have a secure system, every component in it, and our philosophy is it must have a certificate. Right. Every message, every connection between any device and any other device, they do a key exchange using SSL. They all speak the same language, and then every message is encrypted. So that's our philosophy. Right. So not every company builds certificate-capable machines or devices. So we do have some video camera vendors who build certificates into their video cameras. Fine, we use them.
Right.
But lighting companies, they don't even know what a certificate is.
Right.
Security companies, I guarantee you, do not even know what a certificate is. Yeah. So essentially, we build stuff we need to build in order to reach the final customer, but we can't. We only do it through a set of distributors, a set of installers.
Right.
They're third-party companies. We're currently dealing with companies that have about 1,000 employees collectively, and they're going to start representing our product and selling it into some high-end residential markets and low-end commercial markets, and then the building management part of it is another set of installers that we're starting to embrace. So.
Yeah, it does seem to be. Is this something you can retrofit into buildings, or is it something you probably want to do when you're building it?
Buildings already have building management. All of them do, and they all have kind of a standard interface. We're starting with the replacement of that interface so that you can use our interface and easily configure and be notified of failures in your air conditioning system. Yeah. If you think about it, air conditioning is one of the most important things of a building.
Right.
And when you'll note it. You'll know it for sure. You don't notice it here in San Francisco so much because you have a great climate.
Right.
But down in Florida, if your air conditioning fails,
everybody goes home.
Everyone goes.
No more work for that day.
And likewise in New York, if your heating fails, and so these are really important systems. So we're focusing on the ability to create a front end that allows you to manage that in the beginning. Will ultimately do a lot of the back end as well.
What do you think of these drone security companies? I don't know if you've seen this, but people are using drones to fly around their compounds and do like sorties, basically. Let's go check and see what's going on around the compound.
Yeah. I mean, they can't stay in the air for long, so it's maybe a good, easy way to go take a quick look. But
perimeter security seems more likely to have motion sensors along the perimeter. I'm looking for a solution to have around my modest compound.
It's difficult. Outside motion sensors are very hard because a leaf or something can blow through and set it off. But you've got video filtering systems that give you some of that ability.
Yeah.
At the moment, we're more addressing the building perimeter of the building and inside of the building.
You got to get the countermeasures going next. So that's the. I mean, in some countries they are actually putting countermeasures into some safe vehicles. I remember a friend of mine was looking. He kind of got on that prepper kind of thing, and he wanted to buy a Sprinter van from Brazil that came with pepper spray along the doors.
Yeah.
So literally the entire perimeter of the roof of the car is some kind of conduit for pepper spray that shoots 12 feet out all around the vehicle. So if you ever get surrounded, you press a button, huge fog of pepper spray, and you can drive away.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the closest thing we have to that is a video camera watching a wine store entrance.
Exactly.
No, seriously, you can trigger a video camera. This is a nice thing about how all of this stuff interlinked. Yeah. You can actually use motion sensors that are meant for security. You can use the control lights and keep the lights on when someone's there. You can use the motion sensors to be able to tell the building automation system, the BMS system, that someone is present, so it can keep the temperature at a right point.
Right.
There's 4 or 5 different levels that we use in our building management system to govern. Are you on vacation? Are you in the building? Is someone actively in a room? And it can open the baffles and keep that room. So it's a good energy management tool as well.
As we wrap up, when you look back on your career and you look at all the different startups that you've invested in and founded, co-founded, as the case may be, what do you think the core of entrepreneurship is? What do you think makes startups successful and founders successful? And I know it's two different questions.
Honestly, that's a very tough thing. And you're only seeing one guy, and I've only taken one kind of path. I mean, I've certainly missed quite a lot of opportunities, bigger than what I've ever found.
Right.
But what's always worked for me is it's almost an obsession. A devotion, a nonstop work ethic, a reality check, always checking what you're doing against the market that you're going after, trying to talk to people in that market, get the feedback, mid-course corrections. I've been working on this stuff I first wrote software for the iPhone in 2008. So, and literally it was just to control the lights in my home.
Right.
But then later I added security, and then later I thought, well, HVAC management, and then I thought, well, access control. All of these systems, they're all in my home. So I've been, to a large extent, driven by my own needs.
Right.
But each one of them, fold them in, and then finally I said, the big problem is none of this is secure. Each one of these is an individual application, has its own password, and everyone who's doing these integrations have to keep all of these passwords. In fact, most owners of houses, for sure, don't want to have to deal with that. But in the small buildings, is the same way. There's got to be a building manager. What happens when he leaves? Takes a new job. Those are all really important things. And so we decided to build a single system where it can be administered very simply and controlled very simply.
Yeah, when you think about all the cameras and voice, units now going out with Alexa and OK Google and all this other stuff going on, your privacy and all these systems wanting to talk to each other are just opening up so many possibilities of being hacked.
Yeah, it is problematic. I don't like the idea of having a voice control system that's interpreted by some cloud service that's offered by, I don't care if it's Google or Amazon or anybody.
Right.
It's a bit of it can be a serious invasion of privacy.
Right.
And how do you know how protective they're being? The way we handle that is it's all encrypted.
Right.
The cloud traffic is encrypted.
Right.
Our cloud service cannot tell what's happening between a user and his building.
Right. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't see the detail level of the building.
I mean, here's the sequence. We have a certificate to talk to the cloud. The server has a certificate to talk to the cloud. They get connected, and then they say, I want to talk to this home. It says, okay, start talking. And the first thing you do is exchange certificates, develop a secure channel, then the cloud can't hear it. The only thing we will do is if the homeowner says, when that door opens, I want this video camera to take I'm going to record who came in and send that to the cloud. But even when it gets to the cloud, it's encrypted in their keys, and we can't read it. So we are not in the business of any kind of advertising or any kind of use of the information.
Right. You're going to get paid for your software.
We're getting paid for running the service,
Right.
monthly fees. There's a lot of different revenue models that layer up into this. When you've got a security company, you pay a monthly revenue,
Sure.
A monthly fee. All buildings do that, so they're accustomed to doing that already.
Yeah.
You have to have a full-time maintenance or monitoring service for your air conditioning system. Let's face it, it's an important part of the building. It can't go down. And when it goes down, it must be serviced right away. And so you want a monitoring and control system where you can do that, and that's what we're doing.
When you see these modern companies getting very large, the Ubers, Airbnbs of the world, staying private for a long time, what are your thoughts on what you're seeing in this latest crop of internet companies? I mean, Web 3.0 maybe we'd call it, or the modern day internet companies and how they're being run.
Well, if I understand you correctly, you're asking about companies that stay private for a long time.
Yeah, sure. You're an investor.
I think
Palantir.
I think it's terrible.
Terrible.
It's terrible for the employees.
Okay.
I mean, most of these companies, I'm not going to name them, but I'm an investor in one of them.
Sure.
And they have stayed private for 12, 13, 14 years.
Right.
They're a unicorn worth multi-billions of dollars, but there's no liquid currency for the employees. So by the nature, it is not a market, because a market means there's a bid and ask system,
right.
and it's fair. At the moment, it's exactly fair. None of these systems are fair for the employees. So when you stay private for years, whether you're Uber or any other company,
right.
you're screwing your employees. You're giving them a cheap salary, and you're paying them in stock, but the stock is not liquid. So I think it's a complete abomination what's going on.
Right.
It's been, to some degree, imposed by Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks makes it nasty to go public, but in fact, getting public is one of the best things these companies could do, because it enforces a discipline. They're required to have a financial discipline, to report quarterly, and it's got its downsides, but the upside is it keeps you honest. And it makes you grow up. You can't stay a child forever. And the big problem is these companies should have grown up. I mean, we went public in 4 years from the time of start. And we were a huge hardware company. Right. If we could manage it, any of these companies could do it. Right. Microsoft went public in 4 years. They went public at like a 50 million market cap.
Right.
Look at them now. The public got to ride up with them. Right. And that's the advantage. You get the public working for you, and they're super enthusiastic, and they'll hang on. Right. Institutional investors can go in and out of a stock, but a lot of private investors stay in it. So you got a more loyal investment base when you're a public company as well.
And now a lot of these companies go public. A lot of the value has stopped accruing, so they go public at such high valuations that there's no reason for the people to buy it.
Exactly. What's the motivation for? I mean, all of the value has been milked out of the company by these.
Well, you think about Snapchat going public, and at the high end of the range.
Maybe, I don't know enough about Snapchat's business model, whether they had a good one. They're being attacked by Facebook, but in fact, and I couldn't talk the merits of their going public when they did, but I say in general, the market should use the private market when you can. And then get out there and leverage the public markets and give other investors a chance to ride up with you, like you did, like people. There's tons of private people, normal people, made millions on Microsoft by investing in it.
Yeah, normal people, civilians.
Normal civilians, yeah.
Hey, there's a big debate here in Silicon Valley about jobs, and self-driving cars are coming. It's pretty clear. You did a lot of the groundwork for that with SGI and GPUs. We talked about that already. Retail jobs going away with robotics. We're starting to see that start to happen. The idea that somebody's going to be a cashier at a McDonald's has gone away already. People are ordering from kiosks. It's about 30 million American jobs. Some number of those will go away, maybe half, maybe 2/3, who knows, but we know it's going to be some significant percentage. What are your thoughts about income inequality and jobs? Are jobs going to go away? Are we going to see this deflation in the number of jobs, because we haven't seen wages rise? And does that concern you? Because you can afford to pay taxes. We both have done okay. But when you see these jobs going away, do you start to get worried that what's happening in America maybe is unsustainable in some way?
No, I don't. Okay. Honestly, this in one form or another has happened throughout history. You had buggy whip producers, and they moved on and learned to do other things. You had cashiers. They're arguably not necessary even today. So
completely not necessary.
So what's the solution to that?
Yeah,
I'll tell you what it was for me. I was a high school dropout. I had no future. education.
Right.
So, I think the big problem we have now is we're not training people. We're not giving them good groundwork, good foundations in order to achieve in a different way. The world isn't going to stay static. It isn't. Progress is going to happen. You will have self-driving cars. You will have automation everywhere, taking over, already building a car. It's largely a robotic assembly line.
Yeah.
40 years ago, there were people in there with
glue guns.
Yeah, glue guns and screwdrivers and putting stuff together.
Lug nuts. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. And so that progress is happening. You can't stop it.
Right.
I mean, you can try your best, but all you're going to do is.
Well, some people think you're just going to give everybody a universal basic income, a free check every month. What do you think of that?
I don't agree with that. I think you need to treat people who are unable to make a living, treat them with dignity and respect, but at
have
the same,
a safety net. You're not
a safety net, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not socialism. It's just being a human.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a really important way. But education, to me, is at the key. It also, the more educated people get, the more informed they are, right? That's part of what it is. Putting information in so you're informed, becoming unignorant.
Right.
And when you do that, you empower yourself. Yeah. So it doesn't matter what you do going forward, you're more empowered by putting this knowledge in. You have more facilities, equipment to deal with the problems.
Yeah.
And you'll find a new job. You'll find a new job building something, or you will invent something, or you'll work at a higher level in a different kind of job. So I just find that the big flaw in the way our current government is dealing with this is it's not focusing enough on the education. Now, of course, I come from a very educational background, and I've seen how it transformed my life. I grew up in Lubbock, Texas. You couldn't find, or Plainview, you couldn't find a more desolate place and depressing place, the last picture show place. Yeah. And essentially, you've got to elevate. I mean, I've got family there that are still stuck and they're desperately holding on, right? They never educated themselves.
Right.
So I could have been just like that, but I got out, got an education. And not everyone's going to do the amount that I do, but you can get an education, get out, and change your life.
Education's got pretty expensive these days, and it seems like one of these things we can't get
why?
control of. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we've got a lot of private universities that don't do anything for you.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of these debts that have been built up by students are for going to some, I don't want to know how to use the word, essentially dipshit university that has no reason for being there.
Right.
Okay? They don't provide an education. They're all profit-based.
Right.
We've got a perfectly good education system, and instead of giving students loans to go to these nonsense places, make sure that they don't get a loan and that they're going for something that will yield value when they're done.
Right. Trade schools especially seem to be...
I don't care what it is, but it should be a real, authentic place instead of for-profit bullshit.
Yeah.
By the way, I taught at one of those places when I was first out of the Navy. I taught some computer programming. I mean, they're ripoffs.
Right.
I mean,
it's very sad to see this. They get GIs. People come out on the GI Bill. They get a little bit of a loan, and they think they're going to teach them IT support, and they wind up teaching them nothing.
They end up learning nothing.
They learn nothing.
They spend all their money.
Yeah.
And someone walks away with it, and I think it's criminal.
It's criminal.
I mean, I can't tell you the number. I'm not going to mention any of them by name, but there's a number of schools like that.
Yeah.
Supported by very important people.
Right.
And supported by Congress, supported by our politicians, who will give student loans, allow that to happen. That's one place that the government's failing dramatically, is not enforcing that people who get an education or paying for an education get a good education.
Yeah, and that it matches some kind of employment afterwards.
Right.
Hey, what do you think of this? We're going to wrap up. What do we think of the state of the world today? And we're sitting here, 6 months into Trump's presidency, your neighbor down there in Palm Beach, and it seems like it's utter chaos right now in the world.
I don't think you can't argue with that. It's the most chaotic political environment I've ever seen.
And you lived through the 60s in Vietnam.
Yep.
And this is more chaotic in your mind. Yeah.
It's
up there.
It's chaotic in a different way. There we had a war that was not really justifiable. Yeah. We've been through wars. I mean, look, I'm not on a political soapbox here, but we got some serious problems. They're not being addressed.
Yeah.
And it's just one distraction after another. That's kind of the definition of chaos.
Right. Yeah, it's just like what seems to every week that rolls along. It's a different level.
Jim Barksdale used to have a great saying. He said, the main thing is to always keep the main thing the main thing. And that applies in business, that applies in politics.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid our president doesn't seem to be keeping the main thing the main thing.
Right.
He gets distracted and says spur of the moment things, and it's unproductive.
Yeah, it feels like I'm left wondering, how does this end? And as my grandmother used to say, it ends in tears. This is not ending well.
It's not going well.
It's not going well.
I personally think that it hopefully will end well. I'm optimistic that it will, but it may take some pretty serious changes.
Yeah. It's crazy with the state of the world. You'd think we're going in the right direction, and then all of a sudden you get this curveball, right? And you can't anticipate it.
I mean, look, people voted for him. I don't know. Look, he
barely squeaked in. He kind of got that inside straight.
We had problem. There's a problem where we had a problem on both sides.
Yeah. You ever think about running for office? I wonder. Did you ever? You must have been pitched in your time. Did you ever think about it?
I think I've got too many hidden skeletons in my closets. I was a drug user during the '60s, big time hippie.
Cool.
Are you going to get out there and defend yourself for that? I've been married, divorced. Been divorced 3 times. I'm married the 4th time. It's the last time. Got a beautiful wife, a couple of children. But those are all things that get used against you if you try to run for politics.
It is so toxic.
I don't think I'm a political animal. I think I'm much more happy doing what I do.
Product, keep your head down, and build your company, build your life.
I'm not interested in getting up and raising a big bugaboo about what's going on with Donald Trump or anyone else.
Right. Yeah. What a career you've had, huh? When you look back on it, you seem pretty content right now. Are you content?
I'm very content.
Yeah.
I'm very happy. I think, children help bring that.
Yeah,
I've got 2 wonderful kids.
You got 3 kids now.
I've got 4 children, but 2 of them, one's 50, one's 45, another one is 5, and another one's 2.
You got 2 to 45.
Yeah.
All right. You did okay.
There's quite a separation in there.
Yeah. But there's nothing like the kid energy.
Kids give you energy.
Yeah, they do.
And there's a huge amount of contentment comes from just being around them and seeing the things they learn and the things they do. So I encourage everyone to have kids. It's a wonderful way to do it. But you got to have the ability to have an income. I worry about a lot of people haven't built for a basic survival, basic income.
Yeah.
The world is not going to hand you anything.
Right. There's a sense of entitlement today, I think, amongst a lot of people, young people. And you talked about the work ethic earlier. As far as you can see it, work ethic matters and being focused on what matters, right? The thing, keeping the thing. And I've been speaking to some Chinese entrepreneurs. I have one in my incubator, and they work 9-9-6. 9 a.m., 9 p.m., 6 days a week is the standard hours. And then you think about this generation, they're kind of like YOLO, like, I don't know if I really want to work full time. Maybe I want to go to Coachella or whatever.
I program.
Yeah.
I have to say, these days it's maybe 6 hours a day, but I used to 10 hours a day, even 3 years ago.
Wow.
And
just
typically 7 days a week. I'll take a break. I'll go spend time with my kids, go play with my kids. I'll take some time away. I'll go off on a vacation on my boat. But in one way or another, I'll always be working.
Is that your flow state when you're programming? I hear that from programmers. Like you get a sense of flow, like this, peak experience. You forget about everything else.
You have to have. You're building this intellectual scaffolding.
Yeah.
And one interruption causes it all to collapse. So at least the older you get, that's true. So I basically need quiet. So I seclude myself and I sit there. But I do programming. In fact, I program this system.
And you could easily hire people to do it, but you get that joy from doing it yourself? Or is there some other reason?
Well, in the beginning, I did it because it was a hobby. When it became a business, I started hiring people, and I took quite a long time to teach everyone what I had been doing with this. And now that they're trained, I'm quite opinionated. I'll go in and make judgments about the way they've done things, but you don't have you can't build a company by doing it all yourself. You have to have other people. And so the last year, we're now up to about 25 people and just moved out of my Boat Garage is a garage startup.
A garage shark. It happens to be a boat garage.
Happens to be a boat garage.
Yeah, of course.
and they're moving into commercial setting, and we're really putting the the pedal to the metal to accelerate and start going to market. Our product, part of this interview, is to introduce this CommandScape product.
Yeah, and I thank you for choosing.
It's available. We've installed it, for example, at the in Newport at the Sailing Center, Newport
cool.
Sailing Center, 3-story building that has all of our security, lighting, and management stuff in it.
Yeah. Hey, in the 80s and 90s, who was the most interesting character? I mean, you got to run with Gates and Steve Jobs and everybody. You knew everybody. Tell me about some of those high-profile people that we know from their public image, but from working with them. Like, what were they like? What was Gates and Jobs? And
I haven't worked that much with Gates. I've been on a few panels with him, and we were enemies in business. Yeah. But he's a smart gentleman. He's a real mensch. He's a good guy. And like I said, business is a form of civilized warfare.
Right.
And
so you're okay with it?
I'm okay with him. Yeah. His daughter rides horses, and I've seen him at horse shows, and we haven't been interacting much, but I've seen him there, and I've got a lot of respect for him. Yeah. Steve Jobs, I admire greatly because, frankly, the one of the things that's not really well known is the entire Apple ecosystem depends and was based on this super tight system they put together at Next, and the programming Objective-C,
right?
Fantastic system. It's the best system out there.
Right.
Microsoft's a good second, with their C# and their tools. But the nice thing about this is that Apple has done a great job. And part of the reason we're using it is because of that. Microsoft missed the telephone business, and Apple's kind of
It is amazing what Jobs did with Next. It was
it's
it was a commercial failure in one sense, but it was the rebirth of Apple.
It was a rebirth of Apple, for sure.
Without that foundation, they would not have.
They wouldn't be there. There was no way they would have done the phone. None of this would have been done. I mean, I can't overemphasize the pleasure I get from using Objective-C. It is the best language. It's just. It's hard to put to words. I mean, this isn't that kind of show, but so I admire Steve greatly.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people admire Elon. I think Elon Musk is, he's a insightful, hardworking.
He keeps the thing.
Of course, there's ego, but I don't see it as an obsessive ego. I find a guy he's a modern day. All of the things that are currently being said about him are true. So I like Elon Musk. Larry Page, to me, he's a super guy. I've known him for quite a long time, and he's just done a great job. I mean, the idea of ranking things like that, in retrospect, is pretty obvious,
right?
Because that's how academia works. But
you think that AI is going to become sentient? Elon was talking a little bit about that. It could get away from us. Knowing what you know about code and the progress that's been made on GPUs and this acceleration, you've watched it over 5 decades now. Is it completely possible that AI could get out? Is it possible that AI could get out of our control? I
kind of don't think so, but it's not something that I worry about. I know people like Elon Musk do. I think that we're going to develop really good vision systems, really good driving systems, very specialized things. And there may come a time when we figure out a way to glue a good vision system with a good audio system and then have enough neural networking capability at the core to do what a human brain does. But it doesn't strike me that it's going to get out of control.
Or become sentient.
And become sentient. No, I don't have that feeling. I think that robotic systems will become very efficient at specialized tasks through neural networking. By the way, before neural networks became popular recently, AI, as it was discussed in the days of McCarthy and 3 or 4 decades ago, I I never thought that was going to go anywhere, and it didn't. But with neural networks, it's a whole new ballgame.
Right.
At the moment, you don't have enough, even with NVIDIA's systems, you don't have enough power to put it economically in a small package that it can be energy efficient. You still need the cloud. Siri, all these things still need the cloud.
Yeah.
And because they don't have the power to put it in here. But over time, that'll happen. You'll get, I think look, I invented, I'm not so egocentric to say I invented GPUs, but my company kind of invented them. And they became more condensed and integrated in the silicon sense by NVIDIA. And they're primarily the engine of neural networks. But I think there's a specialized type of GPU that isn't meant for graphics processing, isn't good for graphics processing, but is much better at neural networks. Right. Neural networks are fundamentally simpler, but at the same time more extensive, more connected. Our neurons are each neuron's connected to 1,000 others or so.
That's crazy.
And at birth, those connections essentially make a baby incoherent. Right. And the whole period of growth is to prune away at the neuron connections and get the ones and reinforce those that mean something until they can finally make sense of the world.
Hey, you made a big donation to Stanford with this the BioX Center.
Right.
150,000 square feet. What are you trying to accomplish there?
No, 150,000 square feet. Is that what it is? 150?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll end on that.
It's 150 million, but
150 million, 150,000 square feet. There you go.
But
what's the
you know what that was
goal?
driven by? I kind of, by the time Netscape and everything got done, I was saying, what am I going to do next? And I wanted to go back and become a biologist. But then I started looking at doing that. John Hennessy is a good friend of mine. Yeah. He took me around and introduced me to some biologists, and I realized, dude, you got a lot to learn if you're going to do that, and you're 50 years old. Maybe you should donate the money to make more effective use of what you can do that way.
How long do you think we're going to start living a lot longer, huh? You think they're going to get...
I hear people say that. I feel pretty decrepit. I got bad ankles, a bad neck, and arthritic hands.
I think you might miss this. No matter how much you donate, you might miss this wave. You might be doing it for me or for your kids, I think.
I
wonder how long they're going to live.
Body wears out. There's a lot of parts of the body that are continually wearing out. You'll live longer, but do you want to be an arthritic mess at 110?
All right. On that note, we'll thank Jim Clark for coming and sharing CommandScape and an amazing career. Thanks so much for being on the program.
You're very welcome. Thanks.
Okay. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.